As the sun sets on every other day, and leisurely explores a lush forest together along with her bushy companion. Moments later, she arrives at her home, wherein her daughters, Frida and Fanny, experience a sport of football. Upon getting into the house, she unearths her husband Peter, in turmoil over a troubling name from the Stockholm police. After some stressful moments, and S plans to tag alongside are speedy shot down with the aid of using her husband, reasoning that his ex-wife, Rebecca, can be present, therefore making matters uncomfortable. With that, Peter departs without another word, leaving Anne to linger with inside the shadow of her doubt. Several months earlier, Peter and Anne started their day with the aid of arguing over her selection to have a co-employee live over regardless of her husband's refusal. Though she to start with defends her desire, and quickly relents, apologizing for by chance hurting his feelings. Later on, Anne, a lawyer, asks her client, a younger woman who had been subjected to sexual misconduct, a sequence of inquiries to prepare her for the approaching trial, warning that the courtroom docket can be in opposition to her. Following her meeting, Anne reads her daughters a bedtime tale earlier than tucking them in for the night. Just as she is set to depart, Fanny wonders whether or not Gustav's arrival signifies the established order in their family. In response, Anne affirms that they've usually been a family, 11 though the dynamics have by no means been straightforward, specifically considering Gustav's desire to are living together along with his mother. As Anne completes a few work, Peter arrives with Gustav in tow. The subsequent morning, Frida and Fanny hand their brother more than one homemade presents from college. As Gustav opens the presents, he watches awkwardly because the ladies share a gentle second with their father, a connection he has now no longer experienced for an extended time. Afterward, Peter gives to help the lad spruce up his room by taking him shopping, a gesture this is met with hesitant gratitude. Later that day, Anne discusses the boy's troubled beyond together along with her sister, Lena, revealing he had once more been kicked out of college. Out of options, Rebecca determined to have him spend the summer together along with his father earlier than transport him off to a boarding college with the aid of using the give-up of the year. Though all of us feels traumatic approximately Gustav's visit, and believes that it'll ultimately be useful for the complete family. Following her manicure, Anne returns to locate her home in disarray. As she is going approximately her cleaning, she by accident runs right into a half-bare Gustav. Luckily, she speedy diffuses the awkwardness with the aid of asking him approximately a book he fancies. Later that evening, Anne unearths her customer outdoor her domestic, the bad woman's face covered with a shroud of self-doubt as she reveals her uncertainty concerning the upcoming trial. In response, Anne reassures her, claiming that her sacrifice isn't always most effective for herself however for the alternative ladies who skilled such mistreatment. Though the chances are stacked in opposition to her, on the cease of the day, she can be able to in the end remorse her selection to stay silent. The subsequent day, Anne and her ladies go back home after an afternoon of horse riding. Upon arriving, they discover Peter and Gustav with inside the center of a heated argument because the younger guy pushes for the right to transport out on his very own regardless of being a minor. As the argument reaches its boiling point, Gustav angrily departs, heading to the woods to assuage his rage. Meanwhile, Peter vents his frustrations to his wife, blaming Rebecca for the boy's violent demeanor. To his surprise, Anne defends his ex-wife, highlighting the problems of elevating this type of bothered child on her lonesome. Instead of scolding Gustav, she shows that they deliver him responsibilities across the residence to foster a feel of inclusion. Unfortunately, their communication is abruptly reduced quick while Peter, a physician, is requested to return back into the hospital. The subsequent day, Anne's customer storms out of the courtroom, enraged with the aid of the very last verdict. Unfortunately, her tries to calm the woman are for naught, as she departs a tearful mess. In the garage, Anne confronts the accused for celebrating his unjust victory. Following her case, Anne returns to discover her domestic burglarized and valuables and belongings scattered for the duration of the household. And if matters couldn't get any worse, upon returning to paintings the following day, Anne is surpassed a hefty pleasant for moves in opposition to the defendant. Despite the pleasant, she defends her moves and continually fights for what's right. Later that evening, Anne unearths an item in Gustav's laundry that became in her bag, stolen at some point of the break-in, for that reason implicating the boy's involvement with inside the robbery. When he arrives, she confronts him approximately the incident, cautioned that she can be able to record everything to the police if he does now no longer confess to Peter. Though Gustav appears unfazed, she reminds him of the cruel consequences of the system, especially for one with a crook record. She provides him with an alternative, urging him to desert his difficult conduct and actively try to be a part of their family. After a second of nerve-wracking silence, Gustav departs without some other word, taking the trinket with him as he leaves. As the times cross through, Gustav, having established her offer, steadily grows toward his more youthful siblings. During a barbecue, and appears on in joy, delighted through the blossoming bond most of the siblings. Time passes, and one night, Gustav brings his lady friend Amanda home, introducing her to and earlier than they head to his room. Moments later, she notices the pair's sensual moans muffled through a crescendo of loud music. Their rhythmic noises arouse Anne, who later heads into her room to stare upon her bare body. After an extended day at work and attempts to seduce Peter, simplest for him to refuse her advances. However, he in the end relents, and the pair have a passionate come-across that lasts into the wee hours of the morning. Days later, Gustav takes his sisters out close by and watches the shore. She later joins them with inside the water, quick attractive in a splashing healthy with Gustav that elicits a refrain of glad cheers from the women. Following their dip, Anne and Gustav speak the boy's social existence over a bottle of beer. As they drink, she reveals herself drawn to his severe tattoos. Sensing her curiosity, Gustav gives to make her one, however she declines, noting that it'd seem unprofessional, in particular given her profession. In a kingdom of each intoxication and intrigue, and in the end succumbs, granting Gustav permission to etch an complicated pattern on her forearm. As Gustav tidies up, and fixates on her new tattoo, captivated through its understated but wonderful allure. Days later, the couple hosts a fancy birthday celebration of their home. However, Anne, bored of the meandering conversation, leaves the desk to immerse herself in a few soulful tunes, her unexpected withdrawal leaving Peter troubled. Despite the birthday celebration being in full swing, she comes to a decision to go away her guests and instead accompany Gustav to a close-by bar. Moments later, the two speak their respective relationships over a spherical of drinks. Unfortunately, their excellent conversation is interrupted through Gustav's friend, who invitations him to some other birthday celebration. As he departs, and all at once plants a kiss on his lips, leaving each of them surely flustered. Upon arriving home, she is greeted through an irate Peter, who chastises her for leaving without a phrase or clarification of her whereabouts. He maintains his heated tirade, reproaching her for her disrespectful conduct earlier than storming off in anger. The next day, as Peter and the women play of their yard, Gustav suddenly approaches and gently caresses her arm, hinting at his hidden desire. Later that night, Anne, not able to govern her impulses, heads to Gustav's room and seduces him, leading to a passionate encounter between two. After their entanglement, Anne heads out to buy a brand new PC for the boy, indicating her goal for him to live with them for the lengthy term. Though Peter is initially skeptical of her buy, he quickly appreciates the gesture, welcoming her kindness. Following a night with inside the town, Peter and Anne have interaction in a sudden, extreme dalliance fueled via way of means of her tough passion. The subsequent day, Anne meets Sarah, a younger female whose face is blanketed in huge bruises. With a tinge of despair, she recounts her father's heinous acts, every phrase wearing the weight of her painful memories. Yet, notwithstanding the atrocities, the female refuses to testify and angrily erupts as she tries to leave. The following morning, Anne and Gustav have any other passionate stumble upon, their audacity developing with every steamy breath. They retain their dalliance whilst Peter arrives, completing simply as he heads upstairs. As the times move via way of means of, Anne and Gustav retain their encounters, forging an intimate but clandestine relationship. Following any other incident, Gustav interviews Anne with a tape recorder, asking her numerous questions concerning her life. Though she luckily solutions every of his questions, she reveals herself struggling to cope with one concerning their encounters. During the female's birthday party, as Anne steps away to retrieve a few supplies, Gustav suddenly approaches her, and they share a stolen, passionate kiss. Unfortunately, for the duration of their entanglement, Anne is horrified to find out Lena watching from the driveway, the latter leaving in absolute disgust. With her thoughts rife with turmoil, Anne slightly makes it via her daughter's party without breaking down. Throughout the rest of the party, she angrily refuses Gustav's advances, triggering a drunken uproar that ultimately ruins the celebration. Later that evening, Anne and Peter speak to Gustav's future, the former suggesting that they send him off to boarding college as planned. The next day, Anne meets with Gustav in the woodland to give up their relationship, leaving the boy truly heartbroken. Days later, Anne returns from a morning jog and reveals Gustav and Peter making plans for a father and son tenting go for holiday at the own circle of relatives' cabin. She helps the idea, acknowledging that it could be a positive bonding and joy for them. With the guys gone, and takes the opportunity to talk her infidelity with Lena. Sadly, Lena is unwilling to go over the matter, angrily ordering her sister to go away her house. After dropping off the ladies at their equestrian lessons, a stricken and returns domestic to calm her thoughts, leaving numerous loving voicemails to Peter. Unfortunately, that does little to consolation her, as Anne, distracted via way of means of a phone call, crashes her car right into a ditch. Later that evening, and discovers Peter sulking on the table, a tumbler of alcohol in hand. Despite her reluctance, she joins him for a drink, and inside the midst of the evening, he slowly unveils the painful truth, Gustav's heartfelt desire to wait a boarding college and the confession of his intimate members of the family with Anne. Anne vehemently denies the accusation, claiming Gustav's claims to be nothing extra than lies woven to draw interest to himself. Unfortunately, Peter stays unconvinced, insisting that the boy had disclosed such intimate information that they could not probably be made up. His doubt reasons Anne to fly right into a frenzied rage, main her to reveal Gustav's involvement in the housebreaking earlier than storming out of the residence in anger. As she departs, she absconds Peter for making up his thoughts earlier than even listening to her side of the story. Days later, Anne returns to their domestic and proceeds to kind through Gustav's items. While she sifts through, she discovers his tape recorder and right away destroys the recordings, erasing the proof in their intimacy. Moments later, the three have a heart-to-heart talk, discussing the problems of Peter's beyond dating with Rebecca that in the long run led to Gustav crafting such devious lies in an attempt to wreck his new family. Despite Gustav's insistence that his phrases maintain truth, and once more brushes off his claims, satisfied that he is distorting the fact in their beyond interactions. Enraged via way of means of her deceit, Gustav spits on Anne's face as she tries to comfort him before quick leaving the residence, leaving the two to move to bed in silence. The subsequent day, Gustav bids his sisters a teary farewell as he departs for boarding college. Time passes, and lifestyles keeps without a hitch until, one day, Anne reveals Gustav awaiting her on the regulation firm. During their meeting, he pressures Anne to inform the truth, threatening to file her misdeeds if she refuses. However, she quick dismisses his threats, assured with inside the knowledge that she will never be convicted because of his loss of proof. After the holidays, Anne finds Gustav angrily banging on their door. She fast confronts him, who screams in frustration for his father. Anne, incensed via way of means of his persistence, denies him access to his father, declaring that he's now not a part of their own circle of relatives. Her painful phrases shatter his resolve, lowering him to a weeping mess. During her birthday party, Anne tries to reconcile with Lena, best for her try to be met with bloodless indifference. As the night time winds down, Peter gets a regarding phone name from Rebecca, who exhibits Gustav to be missing. Months pass, and the own circle of relatives gets no phrase of Gustav's whereabouts. However, all that modifications when a heartbroken Peter returns from his earlier experience and exhibits that a hunter had discovered Gustav's frozen corpse near their cabin. Authorities agree with that the frame had been there for over months, coinciding with the time and had rejected him from their home. Yet, Peter, ignorant of her actions, blames himself for the boy's death, agonizing over his son's horrible fate. Moments later, Anne breaks down in the bathroom, tears flowing freely from her face as she mourns her function with inside the Gustav's death. When the sobbing subsides, she sees a ghostly hallucination of Gustav silently obtrusive at her from behind. Later that evening, Anne attempts to comfort her husband, assuring he had no hand in Gustav's death. Unfortunately, Peter fast silences her, roaring in anger as he storms out of the room, leaving his spouse to wallow in her guilt. The subsequent day, the own circle of relatives prepares for Gustav's very last arrangements. Amidst the deafening silence, Anne, stoic and somber, stares blankly into the void of her remorse. Wow, I want and was actually reprimanded for the whole lot she did to Gustav. Firstly, I can believe she seduced Gustav, thinking about her line of her. She's the older one and shouldn't have used him. And plainly, I suppose she became responsible for his death. What are your guys' opinions in this one?